Hello ladies and gentlemen, CaptainShack here. I just got back from E3, from LA, just flew in today, or tonight rather, and I just wanted to get one video out. The LA trip was awesome. I got to see a lot of great games. One though that surprised me big time was Warhammer Total War. So this video is all about my experience with Warhammer Total War. I actually got to sit down, I chatted with the devs for like 45 minutes at least before we actually had to break it up because another group was coming in and we were just talking about Warhammer, talking about what they managed to accomplish. I actually got to see gameplay played by the devs, and oh, it's good because this is the first Warhammer game that we've seen where the devs have the shackles off. They're not working within the historical context anymore. It's not just, you know, one group of humans versus another. Now we've got the fantasy Warhammer universe, and Games Workshop actually gave them 2 of every model that they make in the fantasy franchise. So they were able to take those models and like get them down to the detail. But anyways, let me get into it. Here is all the great stuff that I saw during the demo. The match starts up with the Empire of Man in battle formation. Now, their mighty leader is aloft above his army on a griffin, giving a rousing speech to his men. The detail from the griffin that he's riding all the way down to like the pikemen is fantastic. After the speech ends, we see our foe slowly appear on a hillside in the distance. It's the Greenskins. So where the Empire of Man is an organization of foot soldiers and noblemen with like a steam tank thrown in for good measure, the orcs are a variety of different creatures and species, which I would later find out from the dev that they play completely different from the more traditional armies of the Empire. There's gonna be 4 races altogether. You're gonna have the men, humans, you're gonna have the orcs, the greenskins, which are a bunch of races. You're gonna have the vampire lords, and then you're gonna have the dwarves. I can't wait to see how the dwarves mechanics works, because we didn't really get into chatting about them, sadly. But each has a unique mechanic in the battlefield, how they're actually, it's work, and then in the overmap. If you've never played a Total War game, they play on a big overmap. It's turn-based, where you deal with the politics, you deal with setting up forts and whatnot, and fortifications, and upgrading your territory to get resources. In this, though, instead of having different factions of humans, you're gonna have like the orc horde, who can go into a warg state. I mean, I'll get into more of that in a little bit later. Now, the Greenskins have everything from goblins to your basic orc unit, and the animations look so brutish with the orcs running with their, their clubs and whatever makeshift weapons they could get and their shields raised high. It really is damn fitting. In the background of the orc army, you could see this giant. Now, this giant was a hulking unit, and his stomach was extended, this disgusting beer gut that he had, and it was animated to a sickening level of detail. As he moved, his gut like swayed, and we've all joked about boob physics, but this guy had like beer gut physics. And the dev actually made a joke. He's like, well, it takes some maintenance to keep a gut like that the way it is, right? So we found out later when the battle began, you see this giant reaching down and grabbing foot soldiers, and he's like ripping them in half. He's like biting off their heads. He's throwing the bodies. The animation system in Total War, they've always had it so when 2 armies collide, they'll actually have animations play out where the soldiers are kicking and fighting, and they're hitting each other with axes, and they'll be blocking with shields. So it's got this cool trigger system with the animations. But in this one, because you've got inhuman units like dragons and griffins and these like cat-like cavalry units, and that was just the human side, you get into the orc side, where you've got this gigantic, what is it, Ragnarok? It's like a giant spider with a mount. I think you could put maybe archers on the top of it or something. This thing walks into battle, and that animation system where it can actually interact with units around it, they had this in Dawn of War as well. You could, like, this thing was stabbing units, picking them up, eating them, and then a little bit later you'd see it spit out the weapon. And the detail is just so good, like Total War and Warhammer. The idea of bringing these 2 together, fantastic. I'd love to see them do a Warhammer 40K. All right, let's get back into the demo. So they have the dynamic animation system, absolutely fantastic, where you get the blocking and the stabbing, and the units are actually hitting each other. You still have the morale system of a Warhammer game, so your goblins aren't gonna have the best morale. They'll turn and run the second they think they're done for, actually, the second they think they're in trouble at all. So you gotta like back them up with orcs. You gotta use them as the flanking unit, because maybe they're a little bit faster. So those mechanics are still in this. But when you get into, say, the overmap, how the dev was describing it to me, the overmap as the Empire of Man, you're gonna have to deal with the politics, the other lords, you're gonna have to deal with taxation and farming and all that. But as the orcs, you're a war boss, so you're gonna have to deal with, well, other war bosses rising in the ranks. The idea the orcs always need to be fighting something, and if they don't find somebody else to fight, they're gonna fight each other. And you're gonna have to deal with that, or it's gonna start hurting the numbers that you have. If you have enough victories, I think it is, you can get a warg going, where you get all the orcs to kind of just go into a battle rage, and you get these gigantic groups of orcs to just pour over your lines to invade the other races that are out there. I can't stress enough how amazing it was. I'm really sad they wouldn't give me any B-roll footage for it, or at least a few of the video clips from what I got to see the dev play right there. It was one thing to see these battles in a historic setting. It was another thing to see wizards casting giant magic spells and, you know, taking out an entire column of cavalry, the spider walking through. They had a moment in the demo. The guy actually takes control of this orc catapult. And it's got living ammunition. It's got like a goblin with these wings that I guess he's constructed, and the player can actually launch these guys and then control them directly and guide them into the enemy line. And to see a battle from the Total War series, from the actual perspective of a unit, and then controlling that unit, flying it into the line and having it land in the middle of a bunch of swordsmen, exploded, and the swordsman went flying everywhere, and he even did a barrel roll. He was joking around about how he's been trying to work out his barrel rolls and still hit a target, and he nailed it. It was pretty impressive. There is a mechanic there where they can control units, and I immediately asked, I said, is there any other units that you'll be able to directly control like that? You know, besides selecting the unit like you do in a strategy game, right-clicking and telling them to attack something. I wanted to see, you know, direct kind of action-y controls. I wanted to control the giant with the giant, like, piece of tree he was whacking people with. Sadly, they wouldn't give me, they said that there would be other units that you could do that with, but only when it made sense. And then he described one of the development concepts that they walked away with when making this title, what they're working on. Basically, he talks about special rules in the actual tabletop game, and I think it was the trolls, and you guys that are fans of the fantasy franchise will have to let me know if I'm right here, but I think it was the trolls that have a special rule where they could actually, like, puke acid vomit on their enemies, which is absolutely disgusting. So that's like a special rule for that one unit. Well, they took that idea and they implemented it so while these trolls are attacking people, and they might not have been trolls, but while these units were attacking people, every once in a while you'd see them reel back and actually spit acid at people, like throw it up on them. It was disgusting and awesome all at the same time. Oh man. So you're gonna see stuff like that. These ability to control where that orc goblin flying unit that could explode, where it went, was actually coming from the rule set of Warhammer. That you can guide kind of where it goes, and that's what you could do in the game. So they said where it makes sense, you might be able to control certain units. Now, getting into the magic system, because one of the issues that I was a little concerned about, when they showed two magic casters in the battlefield. This gigantic battlefield, this raging thing with like noblemen in heavy armor, heavy cavalry coming in, and so you've got this flanking human army coming in from this side onto the orcs, and they're, like I said, they're the noblemen, right? They're expensive units, heavy, lots of health, something you don't want to lose. And the magic caster on the greenskin sides casts this green moon, cursed moon spell that completely wipes them out. The effect itself was great. It looked fantastic. This thing comes down from the sky, you know, it's this epic moment in the game. It's one of those big spells that they've probably been saving up. And but it eliminates that entire unit as they were charging in for the flank. Could have probably won the battle for them, you know? That's kind of how the Total War games work. A good move, breaking enemy lines, you can win. So anyways, I asked, how do you balance something that powerful? And he said to me something really cool. But it's based in the lore. I guess the way the lore works in Fantasy Warhammer is that the magic, it's like the winds of magic flow from the north to the south, I think he said. And the stronger those winds are where you're at, the stronger magic will be in that place. Now, some places are naturally, they have magic because big spells were cast there in great battles in the past, right? It's part of the lore. So depending on how the winds of magic are during that battle, or maybe before that battle starts, that's how much magic you'll be able to play with. And he said you also have to choose what you do. Those casters have smaller spells that can make a big difference in the battle. Do you cast the smaller ones to help your army fight, or do you save it up for that one big, like the 2 spells that we saw in the demo, in the gameplay, the behind closed doors gameplay? Do you save it up for that big nuke of a spell that, if you miss, you just wasted the entire resource? Or if you hit them, you just wiped out 2 or 3 of their best divisions, practically. So that's a really cool concept, and the overmap is I think what has me most excited, and it's something I haven't seen yet. But I can tell you, if you're a fantasy fan, the detail on the units is stunning. They are really holding, it seems, to the lore of the game. They are trying to build the lore into the mechanics of the gameplay, which is something that a lot of game developers kind of fail at, really. They don't understand the universe well enough to build what makes the universe interesting and unique into game mechanics, and it seems like the Total War guys are nailing it with this. And this is not the only Warhammer game that I saw at E3 that blew me away completely by surprise. And I'm going to talk about those in later videos this week. One, I am wearing the shirt of, I got to see gameplay of Space Hulk Deathwing, and I will talk about that later, but I'm just going to say right now, what was it, 5-player co-op, Terminator armor on a Space Hulk, tactical gameplay, and in the Unreal Engine, and it looks good. It looks real good. So, all right, guys, that wraps up Warhammer Total War for me. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel for more gaming goodness. Expect more on this particular title, because I'm very excited to play this one at a later date, and expect some more E3 surprises, especially, you know, Deathwing. I was blown away by that one, and then there's a space strategy Warhammer 40k. For all you Sins of a Solar Empire guys have been asking me, where's the Warhammer mod for Sins? Well, there's an actual game coming out, and yeah, it looks good. So expect a video on that this week. All right, guys, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.